So shifting gears just a little bit, some of your recent work has incorporated birdsong, which I'd love to hear more about, especially since there's like this kind of rich tradition of birdsong in classical music in general. So how recently did this start for you, and what's been surprising about trying to translate that, admiration for birdsong into sound in your music?
Yeah, it's the starting point for this discussion is that my wife and I both share an immense love and appreciation for birds and have for quite a while actually. But I never really thought about it as influencing my music at all. I knew there was an awareness. I knew that there was birdsong influenced sort of music and the history, as you sort of put it, of it beforehand. And I had listened to it beforehand, but again, with never really like thinking like I could maybe do this exact same thing. But it wasn't until I say the last few years where I was like, maybe I should try this out as just like a way to kind of see how it might kind of influence or change what I'm doing nowadays. And initially, and I would say until like really recently, it's mostly been simply through sort of aesthetic or sort of imagery, right? I would say like, oh, I love the look of this bird. Let's say like a macaw. Like I love how they look. I love how they sort of interact with each other. So like that would be like the inspiration for the piece. That there's like this just this visual appreciation of them, their sort of personality, etc. But not necessarily anything sonically. It's just purely like I like them. Here's a piece that's inspired by my fascination, essentially, right? I guess it depends on who you ask if that counts as a bird song or not. But I find it at least it is still bird inspired. But it wasn't really until very very recent, like in the last like year and a half, I'd say, where, and especially coming more into contact with Messiaen's work, that I was reminded of the fact that wait, they also do sing. Like birds do sing all the time.
Yeah.
They make sounds that I also copy and I whistle back at them all the time when I can, or I whistle for myself because it's fun. And I was like, maybe I should like let that also be part of my language. Like, how can I sort of navigate this in that context? Messiaen, of course, is I would say the composer that people probably point to the most when they think about birdsong, and getting a chance to sort of study his work more sort of intently to sort of see exactly how it navigates sort of the tools in which he's sort of grappling with them, the difficulties in trying to sort of like recreate or sort of recontextualize that which is not notated music, which again, that's normal anyways. It's been a lot of fun to sort of navigate, and all of it is again grounded in just sort of appreciation that I've had for birds prior to this. So it makes me feel like the connection that I have with him now is even more sort of unique and special because it's just like something that I'm finding that a lot of enjoyment out of, and I'm finding that it's very much a very enormous world of musical potential. There's so many ways to sort of navigate this approach and this style and this, and I find that at least for me, I either choose sort of a bird or series of birds based on either how they look, their sort of environmental context, like where are they from, right, or actually what they sound like their songs, their calls, so on and so forth. So between those three contexts, I've been sort of incorporating this idea of sort of birdsong or influence by birds more and more in my work. And just like with jazz and hip hop previously, it's sort of a result of appreciation and things that I really like seeing as part of like my identity. Like, even my students at school know that I'm a big bird person. My office is full of birds everywhere. Same here in my home. The same thing like in our living room. It's full of bird stuff. So it's mostly a matter of just saying like unapologetically, we love this sort of thing. Here it is also influencing my creative work in some sort of regard here, and I can talk about it.
I mean, what you're bringing to mind, not to make light of any of this, but like the meme that you start seeing, like where millennials, like people our age, suddenly get into birds, and I can't say that we are like super into birds. We admire them when they come by. We had birds build a nest in a wreath on our front door and we just let them do it because it's like, okay, I guess they chose us. But shout out to our friend Shelley Washington, who's a composer, and her parents, Sarah and Syl. We were visiting them in Kansas City, and they were going on and on about like how they have the special bird seed and they have all the bird feeders out. And we're like, oh, maybe we should become bird people. And then like the next Christmas, they gave us like our first bird feeder with their seed mix and stuff
Oh
like that.
man,
So I don't know. We might.
that's so real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's real.
We're like researching the bird store. There's like a bird store with all the stuff that you need. Anyway, so I don't know. I guess I bring that up because I feel like that could be an entry point for people who might not be familiar with contemporary music. I mean, it's like, oh, like I love birds. Let's let's go hear this piece.
It's true. And in fact, as I pointed out, my wife, who has always influenced my music as I've met her. Again, she's an enormous bird person as well. Even and she's she's non-musical. She's an artist, visual artist, but no musical training at all. So whenever I introduce her to things, it's always like, I want your opinion as like an audience member who has like no training.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
And she's become increasingly aware and is very quick to sort of point out and catch when such bird things exist in my music. She can hear them very clearly. It's like, oh yeah, it's that bird. Like it's. I agree. It's actually very much in very approachable and transient element that I really quite like. It's almost kind of fun in a way to kind of like put those in there and sort of see what people can sort of find out.
Well, you brought up Messiaen, which of course is like the only composer I can think of who also did this, even though I think other composers did. I think Vivaldi might have done it too. And of course others between those 2 points. But thinking about like Messiaen, if Messiaen's like the most recent, like significant composer that we know as being like someone who does birdsong, he wouldn't have had internet. He would have had to like only have access to birds in his immediate vicinity, which might have, only been in Europe. So I mean, I'm sure that like the internet age and being able to like travel just about anywhere, within a day and coming in contact with, all these different birds, whether online or in person. I mean, I'm sure that that might like affect your approach to begin with, but do you think that your approach to birdsong has started to take like a shape that feels different or even more personal from how others have done it?
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that point up. I recently did a presentation in my class on Messiaen's Oiseau Exotique. That like Fit 1956 for a chamber piece, which is like full of just like a cacophony of different bird sounds from across the world, essentially. And in discovering it, of course, Messiaen was certainly aware of the birds in his area, but he also did travel. I mean, he labeled himself as an ornithologist. Like he was very much like, this is what I do, also, not just music. So he very much was out in the field recording. Um, Notating things down there. He was very much invested in actually sort of exploring, sort of grabbing these things for himself. Because, of course, as he pointed out, there was no internet back then to offer you instantaneity and accessing these things. So when I first started getting into it, actually, a lot of it was because of research into what Messiaen was doing. He would label like, let's say, white-rumped shama or something in his score, and okay, let me look up that bird. Let me kind of read about it. Messiaen also would kind of like write these little blurbs in his front matter about what the visuals of the birds, their kinds of calls,
Mm,
etc. So he was very much invested in sort of like presenting them with much knowledge, to find out that like everything that I researched was also accurate. Like everything was like the exact same as he put it, and even like a lot of times the same bird calls would exist pretty much in the exact same format, even like multiple decades later. Of course, bird calls can and do change over time, but a piece that is like 60, 70 years old, it's really remarkable to find that the bird calls back then for like the American robin are like the exact same as they are now.
yeah.
It's with of course variety as it happens, but that awareness helped me feel like, okay, not only is there enough birdsong online that I can of course refer to if I ever want to for, let's say, research, but I should actually also go out into the field and like just listen, in the same way that I was listening to jazz for fun for myself. I now go out and just listen to birdsong just for fun and for myself. I record them sometimes. Mostly I just like whistle them and I kind of memorize it in my head because it's easier and faster. Um, of course, living in Ohio, there's the classic handful of things like the American robin. There's chickadees here, cardinals, one of the most boisterous ones we hear all the time, etc. So it's a nice kind of like local snapshot of what's kind of in the environment around you. I've gone to Florida and done the same thing. There's just a plethora of different birds there. Same thing. I've gone out west to Arizona with my wife. Same thing. So it becomes increasingly more personal as I've like discovered these bird songs for myself with whatever the context is that I hear them, as opposed to relying strictly on what I might find on like eBird, let's say, or where people have collected and compiled, tirelessly so many bird songs, which of course are very much valuable and certainly are get used through my own influence. But my most recent work that I'm working on right now, or like starting to plan out, is actually relying on like strictly bird song that I've heard myself and that I've compiled for myself, with local sort of wildlife in the area of Northeast Ohio. Which again could have been as easy as just saying like, let me just search these birds and just like use what I find online. But it feels more sincere and again like a snapshot of like, this is what's happening right now in 2025 that I'm discovering. Like now let's put this in the musical context.
Right, and then that, like, I feel like would have a profound effect on, like, your overall body of work where, like, a decade from now, you can look back and be like, "Okay, here's, like, music inspired by like a moment I was in Florida. Here's, I was in Ohio, I was in New York, Arizona, wherever.
Totally.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.